about gold. It has been on an absolutely incredible tear lately, smashing records left and right. But the real question is, where does it go from here? Well, it turns out the world's biggest investment banks are all starting to circle around one single, pretty astonishing number. So let's get into it. First, just to get a handle on how big this is, gold is up a whopping 53% just since the beginning of this year. I mean, wow. A move like that in a major asset like gold isn't just a small bump, it's an explosion. And it's forced everyone on Wall Street to sit up and take notice. And that really brings us to the main event here. After a run like that, you gotta wonder, have we hit the top? Is the party over? Or, and this is what's so fascinating, are we just getting started? The biggest names in finance are starting to think this is just the first act of something much, much bigger. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at this record run. Then we'll get into that huge $5,000 forecast. We'll see how many of the big players actually agree on this, and then get into the why. We'll also touch on the risks, of course, and then wrap it all up with a final takeaway. Okay, so before we can really appreciate these wild predictions, we have to understand the sheer momentum we're dealing with. Because this wasn't some slow, steady climb. Nope, this was a rocket launch. And here's the thing that's really turning heads, the speed. Get this, nearly a third of this entire year's gain happened in just a 2-month window between late August and late October. That kind of acceleration is what signals a fundamental shift is happening in the market, and it's why all these strategists are scrambling to update their models. All right, so all of this incredible momentum is building towards one thing. A new, jaw-dropping price target. A consensus is starting to form around a single number, and believe me, it is a big one. So let's start with one of the heavyweights, Bank of America. They've been revising all their forecasts, and what they're now saying about gold is really setting the tone for the entire conversation on Wall Street. And there you have it, $5,000. Bank of America is predicting that gold could hit $5,000 an ounce by 2026. Now, this isn't some wild guess from a small firm. This is a major call from one of the biggest banks on the planet. But are they out there on their own? Not even close. Let's bring in another global giant, HSBC. Their research team has been doing their own homework. And you know what? They've landed on a number that's going to sound very familiar. Yup, HSBC is also calling for $5,000, and they think it could happen even a bit sooner, in early 2026. So now we've got two of the world's most influential banks pointing to the exact same target. This is not a coincidence, folks. This is a pattern emerging. And that pattern, that trend, it goes way beyond just two institutions. What we're witnessing here is something pretty rare and incredibly powerful, a consensus building across the entire financial industry. I mean, just look at this slide. It really tells the whole story. You've got Bank of America, HSBC, and Societe Generale, all lined up at $5,000. Goldman Sachs is right there with them at $4,900. And even the most cautious one on the list, Morgan Stanley, is still calling for a massive $4,500. The message from Wall Street is loud and clear. Okay, so that's the what, an incredible price target. But now we got to get to the why. Why are all these incredibly smart people so convinced? Well, it really comes down to three main drivers. So here they are, the big three. First, you've got central banks all over the globe buying up physical gold like there's no tomorrow. Second, everyday investors are piling into gold ETFs, which are funds that let you invest in gold really easily. And third, with all the uncertainty in the world, inflation, conflicts, people are running to gold as that classic, safe place to park their money. And this quote here from JPMorgan really hits the nail on the head for that third point. They're saying this isn't just people getting greedy and chasing a hot asset. No, this is a much more calculated move. It's a strategic decision to add some safety and balance to their portfolios. Now, to really grasp the potential here, check out this analysis from JPMorgan. Right now, on average, investors who aren't banks only have about 2.6% of their money in gold. It's just a tiny little slice of their overall pie. But here's where it gets really interesting. JPMorgan poses this question. What if people start thinking about gold differently? What if they start treating it less like a commodity and more like a core safety asset, kind of like how they've always treated government bonds? Well, if that happens, JPMorgan figures that average allocation could nearly double to 4.6%. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but the amount of money that would have to flow into gold to make that happen is astronomical. In fact, they think that shift alone could drive prices up by another 110% from where they are now. Just incredible. Now look, no forecast is a sure thing. So to get the full picture, we have to talk about the risks, the potential bumps in the road. Morgan Stanley, for one, has pointed out a few things that could definitely put the brakes on this rally. So it's really a tug of war. On one side, you have these powerful forces pulling the price up, strong demand, all that central bank buying, and investors looking for a safe haven. But on the other side, you have some real headwinds. Prices could get super volatile. Those central banks could suddenly start selling, or the charts could just start screaming that it's overbought, which usually signals a cool down is coming. So we've looked at the crazy rally, the bold predictions, the reasons behind it, and the risks. Let's boil it all down. What's the one thing you really need to take away from all this? It's this. You almost never see this kind of agreement among the world's top financial minds. They might quibble over the exact number or the exact date, but the core message is identical across the board. From Bank of America to Goldman Sachs, the street is convinced this historic gold rally has a lot more room to run. And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. When all the institutions that literally move global markets are this united in their prediction, does that prediction become a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is a new golden era for this metal now almost inevitable?